like quickly answering their questions, bringing useful examples to them. So we'd literally have them pinging us when they were in customer meetings saying, have you dealt with this issue? Have you dealt with that issue? And throughout our org, we realized the value of letting everybody at every level talk to Microsoft and vice versa. So it wasn't, it was encouraged to build your own relationships. It's not like it was one person owning the Microsoft relationship. Like, everybody should have banter with their Microsoft equivalents, and that continued to grow as we grew. So that would be one thing that worked really, really well. You say referenceability in stories, like constantly pumping in equivalent of win wires into Microsoft, helping them understand what's working, what's not. And as we grew up a bit, we had relatively early, I think we were sub 50 people, we had a full-time Microsoft relationship manager, partner manager, and that was like the best role ever. I mean, that lady was awesome independently, but the fact that she had a full-time role to talk to Microsoft, understand who was where, what their metrics were, because everybody at Microsoft moves around fairly regularly as well. So it's not like you're building like a single relationship you can live off for years. And the roles constantly change. So keeping that in with Microsoft and knowing who's who and what matters to them, if you can afford that role as a partner, is huge value. Sometimes it's hard to measure, but we could see lots of our opportunities came via Microsoft in some way or another.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point that I think partners sometimes underestimate, is how busy that role is going to be. I mean, I talk to partners and they think, oh, well, we'll just kind of share the managing the relationship. And to your point, that Microsoft is so massive in terms of the number of people, and you bring up a point about they move around. You really, to be successful, in my opinion, have to have someone that owns that relationship and is dedicated to that relationship, so that they can.
And all the programs you need to be on, and all the deal registration, and like the names change every 6 months as well. But like, all the partner portals, like it shouldn't be a full-time job, but it really is a full-time job to keep on top of that stuff. And if you're doing things like deal reg, again, having somebody like take care of that for your team, because getting individuals to keep up with what's going on those portals can be a real challenge.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, to your point about the programs, there are so many programs, and they're so different based on what you do, and sort of the discipline that you're focused on, and the size of market you're focused on. So having someone that can really dig into those programs is so key to just stay on top of it, and to build those relationships, so that Microsoft will know to reach out to you and let you know, hey, this might be a good fit for you. So it's having someone that owns that is so critical.
Definitely.
It brings me to a point around the solution designations. It was a big change that all partners went through last year. I think the beginning of October, we lost the gold and silver designation, and we went to these new 6 solution designations. And I'd love to hear from you the feedback you got from your partners and your partner community. Was that a big jump for them? Was it a challenge for them? Was it a seamless transition? And love to hear your experience on that.
Yeah, it's quite a big transition for them. I think it was welcomed, and it came out over time. So fortunately, people kind of knew it was coming, and they had a ramp. But yeah, Microsoft have pivoted that program pretty heavily to where they are now, which is more about cloud and cloud consumption and cloud partners. And that's good for some partners and not so good for others potentially. Where I think it's been a challenge is I work with quite a few, work with / know quite a few small boutique partners. So they're like, 12 people who are best in the world at Exchange or something like that. And this new model doesn't suit them well, because it's about, a big part of it is about license shifting and license enablement, and they might not be in that part of the conversation. So for that type of partner, I think it's been tough. For more established partners, it's just a different set of metrics and exams to go after. So getting their head around it has been a big thing, but in terms of doing it, it hasn't been a huge friction as far as I've seen.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point about those smaller boutique partners. That was probably it's a big challenge, a big change, because of the new metrics that you're now measured on performance, and you're now measured on usage, and these things that aren't always easy to get. So it is a challenge, but I think that one of the things partners will have to realize is that it's the new reality. It's Microsoft's new world, and so taking advantage of the things that are in Partner Center, taking advantage of even the solution designation, although it's going to be a bigger hurdle, it's a larger hurdle and more hurdles, is going to be really, really critical for their long-term success, I think,
Yeah,
to
and to be fair to Microsoft, the old program got to the point where gold didn't mean that much. Like everybody was gold in multiple things. Like and it was because there was no. It was mainly exam based, and you had 3 references. Like
yeah,
you could work your way onto a lot of those programs relatively easy. So it's a little bit harder now to get them, which means there'll probably be net less partners, and it's clearer for customers what type of partner you are. I mean, some of the very, very big boys will go collect all the badges because they've got thousands of people and they'll do it. But lower down the chain, you'll see partners specializing in X or Y, and they'll actually be specialists as opposed to, even us as a small partner of 150 people, we had a whole bunch of golds that, we were like solid in a few of them, but some of them were a stretch. But you could get the badge for a few exams and a few references.
yeah. No, but I think it really does. It gives some clarity though to your end customer, so that, to your
Yeah.
point, they'll know you really do specialize in that. But it also gives clarity to Microsoft, so that if I'm badged in the modern work discipline or that solution designation, when I reach out to the modern work sellers or technical cloud solution architects, whoever, they'll see that same level of sort of clarity in my mission as a business. So I do think there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, definitely.
And for me, or as a partner, when you were at Modality, was Partner Center a big focus for that person? If you had that sort of individual that was focused on reaching out to Microsoft and continue those relationships, did they also own Partner Center in terms of managing it and really operationalizing?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and yes, it is a big part of it because Microsoft being again so big, a lot of things are from a partner recognition perspective are metric driven as well. So it's sort of no good saying we've done all these amazing deals, but you haven't done any of the stuff to get the metrics for them, because it won't show up on somebody's dashboard who's 3 levels up, who's like, well, I don't care, because they're all. Or the other thing that would happen is like, who cares regionally? So because we were a small partner relatively, we would do lots of international. We worked with massive enterprises, but it would be somebody else's account in somebody else's country. So for a while we were a regional partner, then we got to global partner, and that made a difference as well. So there's lots of intricacies there where having somebody who understands how you get recognition in that partner center thing, which is a pain to work with, frankly. It's always a bit hard work, is really important.
Right. And it gets back to that, having someone take ownership, and so why that's so important. But so we've got a question here, Tom, from someone here. And so I'll apologize that I hit the go live button a little bit late. So the fellow here, the person was like, get in later. So that's on me. I apologize for everyone joined now. You did miss a couple minutes there, but here we are. So
yeah, I was talking about someone having so when you've got a bunch of field sellers, having an assistant, an admin, whatever you want to call the role, like pumping the deals into Partner Center to get the right registrations and the right recognition, can be a really good investment. I think it depends on who you are and what your scale is, but getting each individual salesperson to understand how that system works can be a real pain, because they constantly move things around, the deals change, etc. So if you can afford someone as part of their role to understand that, and that might be that same person that owns the Microsoft relationships, or you might have a relationship manager who's more of a sales relationship manager person, not administration, and have an administrator if you can. I see lots of partners at the moment. I'm working with lots of AV partners in the Microsoft room space, and it's a very different world how Microsoft works as to how AV works. So they're not doing a great job at this deal registration at the partner center. And I'm like, they've got money. I'm like, go get someone to look after this role. And they're like, oh, how do we justify it? And it's like, well, and this is the thing. Some of these things are not a straight line to, a metric, for example. But in the case of partner center and some of the kickbacks, you can actually make the case that if they get their act together on that, they could fund the role through the various incentives they get from Microsoft.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that people miss too is just the outcome of entering that deal in there, is that the exposure as a partner you start to get if you are consistently entering deals in there, especially for regional partners when there's only a small number of account executives assigned to those geographies. They start to see your name over and over again. That's not a bad thing. I mean, when you start to get that recognition and that name recognition, it's like, oh, wait a sec, I've seen this partner before. This is the third deal they brought up to me, and now you start to get that sort of benefit from that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think one of the other things, I think you might have been alluding to there is the program. So the sort of line to profitability for that role, you think about the concept of what's referred to as claiming partner record or CPOR, PAL. All of a sudden, when you start connecting your organization to that, you start Microsoft seeing that, and the incentives and the programs that are built around driving usage and consumption can really, as you said, they can pay for that role or part of that role to offset it. So I think it's really important there.
Definitely.
Yeah. So one of the things I'd like to pivot to is mindset. For me, one of the things I learned early on, and when I first became a Microsoft partner, I had this expectation that, hey, I'm a Microsoft partner. Why aren't you just immediately working with me? Like it was a jump that I had to make. That's just because you're a Microsoft partner doesn't mean that there's going to automatically be that connection. Is that what you've seen in terms of your different roles?
Yeah, definitely. It's the start of the journey, not the end of the journey. So getting the badges and the recognition and the partner status is just your ticket to even vaguely have the conversation.
Right.
And it can be confusing because Microsoft do a very good job of marketing what a partner centric org they are, and obviously they are in the sense that a lot of revenue flows via partners.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not in the case that they work for you, like you work for them, whichever way you look at it, and that's how you should consider it. And I see a lot of partners, particularly like immature partners, get annoyed that like they've put all this work in, and
Right.
like why is Microsoft now not doing the business for them? It's like, well, Microsoft built Microsoft and the market, and you're around the edges of that market making your own business. Like if you want to go build your own UC platform, by all means do it, but if you want to play their game, you've got to play by their rules. And then it is like working to help them achieve their objectives is what they want from a partner, really.
Right. I think that's so important to remember is that you're there to help them achieve their objectives is to, they have something called their scorecard metric, and you need to understand what that is and how you can help them hit that metric. And I always tell partners, it has to be a win-win. You
Yeah.
have to be able to bring something to the table.
And those metrics will change over time. So, and this is something else is hard is you might be in fashion for a couple of years, like you're doing SQL Server and SQL Server is a thing, and like leads are flowing and life is good and SQL Server is amazing and you're selling loads of CPU licenses and life's good. And a few years later, Azure SQL is the thing, and now it's all consumption and it's cloud based, and
Yeah.
they don't want heavy PS deals and they want this, that, and the other. And suddenly you're not the partner, and they're very good at bringing new partners through as well. So there's a constant churn of like, if you're not doing the current thing, there's a whole bunch of partners behind you ready to do the current thing. If you look at our world at the moment, like Teams is super hot, but Viva's on the rise. Like Viva's the new hotness. So like you need to now, if you're in modern work, have a Viva story, have some idea of where you're adding value there, because there's a whole bunch of people that are metriced around that. And it's a constant cycle. It's not like you're going to stand still with Microsoft and be the experts for 5 years. You have to run with their cycles of innovation.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. You need to innovate on their sort of pattern and the things that are hot with them at the time. And there's this concept of the solution play or sales play for people that have been in the Microsoft ecosystem for a while. And I think it talks directly to that we'll see Viva be a real hot topic for solution plays in the modern workspace.
Yeah.
And really, to your point, staying on top of that is so critical for partners.
Definitely.
So one of the things I'd love to hear from you, Tom, is just the things that you've seen that partners should steer away from. Sort of if you had to give a partner some advice of what not to do today, what would that look like, or what would that sound like for a partner?
Yeah, good question. I mean, obviously, like there's a few things there, but most partners have a stack of technology options in their portfolio. So it's rare that people are 100% Microsoft. So like the partners, or Modality certainly was 100% Microsoft, and that gave us a natural advantage, because anything that came to us was only going one way. But if you're in a partner that has multiple tech, which is probably the reality for a lot of people, just be aware of like explaining how that works to Microsoft. Like if you've got people that are dedicated to the Microsoft, or if they bring you a lead, you're only going to push it their way. I think it's really important to communicate that well, because if you've got, say you're a Microsoft and Cisco and Zoom shop, like the natural question obviously is, well, are you gonna, if the customer says, oh, I'm 50-50, are you going to pivot to the other one that gives you more revenue, or the other thing that gives you more margin? And that might be the right thing to do for the customer. So it's a tightrope to walk, that kind of multi-vendor relationship, for sure. So that's one thing.
That is really that is a tight, tough rope to walk, because as a partner, you want to do the right thing for the customer, but if you want to build that relationship with Microsoft, it's going to be built on trust, and the Microsoft seller or the people you're partnering with at Microsoft really need to trust that if you're going to bat with them, that you're going to go all the way with them. It's not sort of switched halfway down the road. So it's a great point, and one that I think partners really need to be aware of and think through very carefully.
Yeah. So another one would be Microsoft do a lot around kind of sales training, pre-sales training, exams for technical as well. And they want to see you engaged in all of that up and down the organization as well. So another one that would be a direct turn off for Microsoft is if it's great you've got a business unit that are all over Microsoft, but if your field sellers don't know the difference between M365 and Azure, like when they get into the conversation, it's like, oh, you guys are not really in our world. It's great you've hired 10 technical geniuses that know Microsoft, but if your field don't understand it, if your pre-sales don't understand it, you're not investing up and down the organization. That can be a bit of a turn off for Microsoft as well, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. It's really something to pay attention to. And I was recently speaking with a partner, and they have a mission and a mandate in through their organization that everyone has a certification in Microsoft, right? Every role, whether it's sales, delivery, and for me, that shows such a commitment to Microsoft, and I think that really will pay off in the long run when you're.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a really sensible thing to do, and just everybody knowing the basic language of what the things are. Those kind of sales exams and stuff are really good. I mean, they're quite, it's quite hard to get people to go through those exams and spend the time, but it does show that you've committed to it.
You've committed to it, and it just, I think, helps you in the long run in your sort of approach to selling the Microsoft stack, and how you understand the nomenclature, you understand the different types of products, where they fit. So it's really important to do. And so we had a note come in here from Ted, and considering Microsoft's downtime on January 25th, MSP customers are asking about questions about Microsoft's alternative and competitive landscape.
Yeah, really good question, Ted. So I mean, it's an interesting industry question, isn't it? Because Microsoft certainly have had various blips in their uptime for various services. I mean, it's not like they've had to date like a global everything is down at the same time outage, because the infrastructure is built as such. It's kind of pockets. But my question with that is, I mean, first of all, you as a partner work for the customer in a sense. So what does the customer want is really the question. But I'm not seeing in the customers I work with, like so far, these blips are obviously frustrating, but it's a cloud platform. Is it any worse than when they ran their own servers? Probably not. Statistically, almost certainly not. It's not changing anybody's strategy at large. So if your customers are coming to you, Ted, and saying, I want an alternative, you as a partner might need to look at what you might suggest to them. But everything is going cloud now. So it's kind of like, well, we'll go to somebody else's cloud, and are they invincible to downtime? Possibly not. So I think it's just part of the new way of IT is cloud, really.
I'd have to agree. I think it's our new reality. It's how we're moving forward. I don't see us ever going back to this on-premise world. So I think that, to your point, no matter what cloud option you select, there's always risks. So
Yeah, I think there is a partner opportunity there to educate your customer as to what their BCP is for that kind of scenario. Do they need a backup platform? Can you help them in other ways? Like, there's definitely a conversation to be had there. I think switching is probably not it, and certainly not if you want to be in the good graces of Microsoft.
That's the truth. So, well, Tom, this has been a fascinating conversation. Was there anything you wanted to leave the audience with? Any last notes? And then I would like to share, how would, if someone wants to learn more about empowering cloud, how do they do that?
Yeah. So I guess no particular notes other than I'm on LinkedIn fairly regularly if you want to engage in this conversation, and like Rob, you and I have good back and forth here around partner landscapes. That's always fun. And if this is mostly partners in the audience, so it's empowering.cloud. There's a whole bunch of free community content there. So if you're in the Teams or Modern Workspace for your organization, for your sales, for your pre-sales, for your technical, there's probably a ton of free value there that would be good for them. But if you do need that extra bit of help and you want a structured program for how to get through your Microsoft partner exams for Teams, and more importantly, to keep your sales, pre-sales, and technical up to date with the constant changing in Microsoft Teams and the ecosystem, would love to talk to you. But start off with the free community stuff and get some value out of it. And if it's relevant for you, feel free to DM me on here, and we can have a chat.
Yeah, I can't stress enough how important it is to keep people up to date on your team. For a partner, it's one of the biggest challenges. There's so much information coming in so many different directions that having it one place to go is, it's an enormous value just to streamline that. And just, even if you think just in the team space, like there's just so much content.
Well, 400 product changes last year. So, like, obviously, some of those are quite small. The button moves around, but some of those are really impacting. The thing that's unique about Teams, and where I think we're adding real value, is it has a wider ecosystem of devices and contact center and recording and reporting. So we're helping partners kind of dissect what offers are relevant for them in that space as well, which is a really hard thing to do as an individual partner.
Yeah, I mean, that on its own is a conversation we could have one day, is just how the
Definitely.
ecosystem that's coming up around Teams, the Team store. I was in there the other day looking for something. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just gone wild. It's like there is so much you can do there inside of Teams now. So anyhow, Tom, I'd like to thank you for your time. I really appreciated your time, and I loved our discussion today. So thanks for that. And for everyone watching, I apologize that we're a couple minutes late. That was my bad on not hitting the go live button. So anyhow, have a great day. Thanks again, Tom.
Yeah. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for the time, Rob.